I care about the environment, but other than being vegan, I never really knew what to do to be more eco-friendly. I actually used to look at the zero waste movement as really intimidating. I see a lot of videos that people post about it and it looks amazing, but I never really thought I could be at that level, so I kind of just always brushed it off as being unattainable. And then I thought about it like this. If a friend of mine came to me and said that they wanted to go vegan, but they were scared that they weren't gonna be a perfect vegan, would I tell them not to go vegan at all? Of course not. In fact, I might even encourage them to start small by swapping out 1 or 2 meals at a time. Of course, if you want to go cold turkey, I'm all for that as well. But I would never want someone to be so scared of not being perfect that they don't even try at all. And that's what I think it should be for reducing our waste as well. I'm obviously not perfect. I mean, you guys see my grocery hauls. I obviously need to work on buying a lot less produce wrapped in plastic. That is so frustrating, by the way, that is the default and usually the cheaper option, but I am trying to be better at it. So again, this is not about being perfect or even being zero waste. This is just some small tweaks that I feel like most people can fit into their everyday life. So that's why I want to share with you my everyday, non-intimidating ways to reduce waste in the kitchen. So pretty much all of my jars are ones that I have reused from things that I've previously purchased. These ones are actually my favorite. They are from the PC pasta sauce, which we eat quite a bit. And I love them because they are super easy to just peel off the label and put the whole thing in the dishwasher. So I feel like they make the perfect reusable little jar. I store a lot of my beans and nuts and grains and things like that in these. And I also use them a lot of other ways around the house, like for growing sprouts, for my sourdough starter, and even for storage for like chopped up veggies, things like that. Things that I would otherwise use Tupperware for. Jars are great for that. These were probably used just to like cover something, and so if they're not that dirty, I just rinse them off and put them back in the drawer to be used again. These I actually bought when I first moved to Canada. I bought them to replace parchment paper. The only thing that I don't love about these is that you're not supposed to use them in really high temperatures, so I've read that anything over 400 degrees really isn't ideal for these. So I do still use these for cookies and crackers and things like that, but I do wish that I could roast my veggies and things at higher temps on them. That's my only complaint about these. And along those same lines is these reusable muffin cups. I have used these so much since I first bought them 4 years ago. These are so great to replace regular paper muffin tins if you use those. And the other great thing about them is you can use them by themselves on just a baking sheet. So if you only have a baking sheet and you want to make muffins, you can use these over and over again. You just wash them and reuse them. And I also like to use them to make like chocolate. I do homemade peanut butter cups in these. So I do feel like they've been a really good investment. So like I said, I am not perfect. I did buy these Ziploc freezer bags, but I have been using them over and over again to try and get the most out of them that I can. I bought this box of 15 bags, I think over a year ago now, and I still have some that have never been used, and the rest I am just washing out and reusing again and again. Usually I'll use them for things like bread. If I make 4 loaves of sourdough at one time, I will slice them all and just keep them in the freezer in a Ziploc bag, or occasionally I will also use them for things like leftover veggies. I do plan on eventually replacing these with a very reusable Ziploc bag, such as Stasher bags, and there are a couple of other companies like that. But I think an important mindset to get in is to reuse what you already have until you really can't use it anymore, instead of immediately going out to buy something new, even if that something new is a little bit greener. So I've already purchased these. Instead of just using them one time and throwing them out, I'm going to reuse them again and again until they can't be used anymore. And then these are little strips of reused parchment paper. In my last video, I showed you guys a hack on how to keep your pancakes or waffles or anything that you're putting in the freezer separated by using one of these little strips of parchment paper. These I also wash and reuse. I know it seems a little bit silly because it's such a small piece, but honestly, why not reuse them? They never really get dirty. So whenever I take out a pancake or a waffle to eat, then I will just give this a little rinse and let it fully dry. Make sure it's dry before you put it away, and then reuse it. Also, this cheesecloth, this is what I use to cover my sprouts when I'm growing sprouts. Same deal, just rinse these off and reuse them. These silicone covers I actually did purchase pretty recently to replace what I used to use plastic wrap for. I've actually found these really handy for covering up bowls and just popping them in the fridge. If we have a bowl full of leftovers, a big salad that I've made, something like that. These have come in so handy. Like, I haven't missed plastic wrap at all since using these. I also have a few items that I purchased at at Value Village, which is a Canadian thrift store, including this big, beautiful pan right here. I actually showed this in a video a while back. But if you do need to add something new to your kitchen, thrift stores can be a good place to check first, and/or places like Facebook Marketplace. There's a lot of very gently used items on there that you may be able to buy and use for a long time. Food waste is another habit that I feel is pretty easy to change. I actually didn't even know the impact of food waste. I mean, I knew that people were throwing away a lot of food, but I didn't know that it has such a huge environmental impact. So there are a lot of great resources nowadays for what to do with leftover food scraps. There's actually an IG account called Plant You, and she has a series called Scrappy Cooking, where she uses common leftover food scraps and turns them into other things. But another good way to reduce food waste is to freeze things. I feel like the freezer is one of the most underrated tools. You guys have probably heard me talk a lot about it with batch prep and meal prep, but I love freezing things that I know I'm not going to be able to eat during that week. If it has been more than a few days and I haven't eaten it yet, then I will likely just pop it into the freezer to be eaten at a later time. So obviously I do still buy a lot of packaged items, but switching to homemade on even just some of those things can help reduce some of that waste. Some of the easiest swaps are going to be your homemade salad dressings, homemade granola, homemade jam, and homemade bread. Now I know homemade everything might not be everyone's cup of tea, and it does sound a little bit intimidating at first, but just start small. Start with 1 or 2 items that you usually buy at the store and try them homemade instead. But I think out of all of the swaps, the biggest one has been the mindset shift to just buy less. And believe me when I say that was a big mindset shift, because I used to buy a lot of things, but just changing my mindset into reusing and repurposing things over and over until they really cannot be used anymore has been a very easy shift, a very small shift, but I think it's made a big impact. If any of you are familiar with the famous mantra, reduce, reuse, recycle, apparently that's in order of how we should do them. We should first reduce our consumption, then reuse something if we already have it, and lastly, recycle if there's really no other way to use it. So if you found this helpful or it resonated with you at all, let me know in the comments below. I wish you all a wonderful Earth Day today and every day. And with that, let's eat plants, and I will see you guys next time.